Okay, all in for you. We call the meeting to order then. Wow.
Is there a lot of us here?
This is amazing.
Oh.
This is, I think, the first time in maybe 6 months where we've had all members here.
Right.
So thank you, Paul, for being here. And I don't know if we need to do a roll call tonight, but you are definitely not going to get to vote tonight. I just want to let you know. It's okay, but we appreciate your input anyway. Just,
Can I just listen to? Is that?
you can
You
listen.
can fire away at what questions
You
about anything. That's
can
fine.
participate as much as you like,
Okay.
but you,
I'm open to questions if there's anything that comes
have you been on the planning board before?
up. I was just mentioning to Sarah, I think I mentioned like 20 years ago for
Yeah,
a very short while.
You kind of have some sense of what we do and don't do.
My memory's fine, I'll tell you. But yeah, I get it. A little bit. I suppose it's like.
Close enough.
Yeah, I'll listen.
All right,
I'll figure
and
it out.
if anytime we seem to be going someplace where it doesn't make sense to you, have a stop, and we'll figure it out. Sometimes these guys need to tell me the same thing.
But, well, we're good people here. People have been around a long time and know what the hell they're doing. This is good.
Yeah, in fact, it's the only reason they allowed me to do this job. And that was it, they allowed me to do it. You got a good crew, so, well, thank you all for being here. Okay, so that's the roll call. Okay, we've done current voting. We know everyone who's here is going to vote, who's a member, no alternates. And minutes, please. Last meeting, I have one correction I'd like to make, and that is somehow Nick became Peter. And so if we could make sure that Nick stays Nick, that would be nice.
You did point that out. So you read the minutes on Peters, because he called us and said, my name's not Peter.
And I'll take responsibility for that, even though David usually does minutes, I usually do an edit, and I missed that. We had a misspelling of Caitlin, and I got that one, but I totally missed the fact that Nick became Peter.
Nick Aceto.
Yes.
Yeah.
So any place where it says Peter Aceto, there is no Peter Aceto, it's a Nick Aceto. And he was the guy who showed up. It is up in the attendees listing correctly.
Well, I do see Peter on the right over there in the picture behind Sarah.
That's what I was talking.
How that happened, magic, I don't, AI. Okay, any other changes to the minutes?
You did notice, Sarah, I am breaking up paragraphs. I'm breaking them up.
That's very nice.
It's your lead.
I move that we accept the minutes.
Ooh, I have a motion.
With the one.
With the one change, second?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor? Thank you. Move around. Okay, well, our first order of business is public comment. Okay, you good? Do you wish to be a public member today?
Whenever you want me to talk about my couple of items.
Okay, well, I think right now would be a good time because it's not on the agenda, unless it's something that's on the agenda. No.
I don't know, I haven't seen the agenda.
Capital improvement and short-term rentals.
Yeah. You hope not.
No. So, something new in fire marshal's office / house of whatever, representatives. February 23, House Bill 296, relative to local authority for granting driveway permits. The bill clarifies the authority for local land use boards, that's you, to regulate driveway access for related properties, which you know that. But how it affects me as fire chief is any of my, like I use NFPA 1, NFPA 101, they're basically our Bible for code stuff, driveway stuff. Chapter 18 in NFPA 1 is fire access, which is driveways, turnarounds, width of roads, grade of roads, which you have some of that stuff in your regulations. But House Bill 296, which if it's not passed, it's gonna pass according to the fire marshal. All fire authority or fire marshal assistance authorities will not supersede planning boards. So you're God with fire access now. So what it says on the part of the House bill is provisions of state fire code and associated rules shall not supersede authority of local land use boards under planning and zoning provisions. Blah, blah, blah. RSA to regulate the permit driveway access for detached 1 and 2 family dwellings. So this House bill is only for 1 and 2 family dwellings, commercial or hotel or stuff like that's different with the way I'm reading it. So basically, long story short, and then at the end it says, local land use boards shall give consideration to any written recommendations of the municipal fire chief regarding fire department access to include width, vertical clearance, grade, suitability of road surface, bridges, dead ends, and the ability to pass and turn around once in the driveway. So basically, anytime if I have a deal with a fire issue, I can't use NFPA 101, I have to go to zoning book, whatever you guys have in writing. So, I mean, you guys have grade, you have width, you have a bunch of that stuff, but you don't necessarily have everything that Chapter 18 has in NFPA 1, such as, I've had some bridge issues, bridge code stuff I had to deal with. We've had, and some of the other items we've dealt a lot with lately is overgrown brush and limbs, which is in NFPA 1, Chapter 18. Lack of turnarounds, which you do have turnarounds in your zoning codes, whatever you want to call them. And the grades, of course, steep grades, which you guys have that. So the only thing I think you're going to have to review it and think about whether you need to add stuff or just add the fact that, I'm trying to think how you word it, but the fact that maybe whether it be the fire chief or whoever can use reference NFPA 1 or 101.
Yeah, I took a look at what we have currently, and it's very light.
Yeah. The simplest thing would be to just somehow be able to draw up a zoning ordinance that you can reference, that you will reference 101 or 1 per chapter, NFPA 1 or 101.
Sir, you want to comment? I know you're more familiar with how that works.
Yeah, well, we already referenced like the building codes
Yeah.
and that, and so I think do it in similar fashion, saying that in citing a driveway that we would consult with the fire chief as to what his regulations that you're governed by, or
We require town spec road, and so wouldn't
Yeah.
that encompass? I mean, the only situation where we don't require town spec is if it's a driveway that services 2 or less, 1 or 2 dwelling units. If it serves more than 2, then it's a town spec road, and I would assume that encompasses whatever.
But it doesn't necessarily have everything, like I'm not sure what's in there for, I don't know how much it covers, like it's.
Well, and we have a document just on road stuff, and so we.
Yeah,
can be able
but
to
you're
do that.
more concerned about driveways, if I'm hearing correctly?
Well, driveways, roads, mostly probably roads,
Okay,
not necessarily
All right.
1 and 2 family driveways, that's,
Well, the highway department, I mean,
yeah, 1 and 2
Agent
family
usually
dwellings
wants to
are a little, unless it's new construction, they're a little bit, they're protected pretty good, it's hard to push anything on that stuff, but a road, whether it be private road.
right.
Now,
And-
when does a driveway become a road as far as length?
Or just over 2 houses, not length.
Well, that's what I mean, is that if you have somebody with a really long
Yeah.
driveway, then that's gonna be a problem for you.
See, that's actually one thing that I don't think is in your regulations, but it's in, I'm not sure, well, actually, I'm not sure where it is, but I know anytime you have a road over 1,000 feet or every 500, you have to have a turnout for an ambulance or fire truck. I'm not sure where, if that's in your code. I know because Burr and I have done, there's been a couple driveways recently that have been over 1,000 feet, so there's, had to make sure there's a turnout in it. So I'm not sure where that is, but
Turnout is in so that you can
a
pass.
place so that if you have a narrower road or driveway, then like a fire truck can pull over and another one can get by, or an ambulance can pull over. and
Or you
another
can
one
turn around. basically.
Well, it's a turnout, it's not a turnaround.
Yeah, but,
It's just a wider spot.
Jay, can the planning board appoint an agent to do that work, to meet that new law? For example, could we have Burr do the work,
yeah,
instead of planning board
Well,
trying to figure out where the,
But what work, I think, we need to define what the work is that we'd be doing, and it seems to me that we require town spec roads, so I assume that would encompass most of what we need to have.
And you're looking just to clarify the zoning, once we change the language.
I mean, we do have.
We don't have any regulations on driveways other than it has to be.
No.
That's always been sort of a gray area.
Yeah,
Right.
And
It
we,
would be
you know, there
in-
are homes that don't even have a driveway all the way to the house, that have a pathway to the house.
see, that's a good point. So that's where if the planning board gives me the ability to reference NFPA 1, that's where those things can get fixed. Because, for example, NFPA 1 talks about a driveway has to be within, I can't remember exactly, like 150 feet of the front door. Like you can't have a driveway and have the house be 3,000 feet away, because you can't
Get to the house.
access it.
And this came up, I mean, we sure got very involved in all of this 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and I remember going head to head with Dave Mason on some of this stuff. And, you know, one of my, just playing the devil's advocate is, you know, what about Black Mountain Cabin, or, you know, any cabin that's at the end of the trail system, is a dwelling unit for the, you know, for a night at least. You know, where do you divide the, you know, where do you draw the line between that sort of remote access dwelling unit and, you know, something that requires a driveway?
Before now, I always had the ability, the authority to use, if I felt as though it was a safety hazard or something really bad that needed to be dealt with, even if it's 1 and 2 family, then I had the authority to be able to use NFPA 1 fire access and, you know, then figure out, okay, how are we gonna solve it? This is what NFPA 1 says. This may be what we do, this might, you know, even if it's 1 and 2
how about a
family.
house like?
Right now, I can't.
So how often have you had to approach a property owner and say,
I've had a couple of bridge issues. We've definitely had a bunch of overgrown brush and limbs that between Kevin and me both have had to tell people, hey, you gotta start cutting some limbs because we're losing access here. We had a turnaround issue up Black Mountain east or west, east, where I had to use some fire access stuff to solve some issues there. So it does happen. But like right now, the only thing I can do is look at the zoning that you guys have in writing. So, and I mean, you guys probably I mean, as far as width, turnaround, and grade, I didn't think about the difference between a private road versus a 1-2 family driveway, I guess. So I didn't study that recently.
I mean,
That's not in the zoning ordinance, that's in the road.
Driveway permits. It's in driveway permits. in the select-
well, there's a road
That's
ordinance,
selectmen.
right?
So you guys don't have any authority with 1 and 2 family?
No, only as.
Only in a
if-
subdivision?
When someone's proposing a subdivision, then we look at all that sort of stuff. But
Yeah.
once you have something,
HB 296, relative to the local authority for granting driveway permits. Passed House Committee, removes fire department ability to regulate access for 1 and 2 family. Amended analysis, the bill clarifies the authority for local land use boards to
Dick, do you have,
regulate driveway access for residential properties.
Dick, do you have a comment?
Well, from, let's see, last month's discussion with the folks across the Route 16, it was brought up that a 4-unit dwelling could have a driveway.
Right.
I don't get that from the state. They're saying 1 and 2 family. So if it's 4-unit, said townhouse, that'd be, 4 dwelling units. Where we end up on that?
You know, I just read through these just this afternoon because I was looking for typos.
We haven't, because they haven't made an application yet.
But we have very limited material in the actual zoning ordinance. And when there's specifics around a driveway permit, there's information around 50-foot minimum width for a road that put in. But there are very few specifics that are similar to what you might look at as a select board for your driveway permits and the things that Kevin actually has to work with.
Yeah, so by definition, local land use board, is a selectman a local land use board, or is that specific to
Well,
planning board?
here's the deal. When we put together the zoning ordinance, these guys who did this were really smart. They basically said, we put it together, but the selectmen are responsible for any kind of enforcement process. So they hire the building inspector, they hire a fire chief, they hire the appropriate people to review whatever is necessary for something to work according to the building codes, according to whatever other state requirements are out there. You're telling us that the state requirement's going to change a little bit and give more autonomy to a local board, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Yeah, and it sounds like right now, if you guys don't have anything on 1 and 2 family stuff, and we needed to do something, the only thing that's written in the driveway permit then.
That's correct.
Right, but if it says that,
So this is more towards maybe them. at
But
this
if it
point.
says we need it in the zoning ordinance in order for the select board to be able to enforce it, we may have to, as we do in a lot of other things, we simply reference and say that this subject to, RSA number 436, blah, blah, blah. Or whatever state requirements are, if the state requirement's the standard. But if you're saying that we need to do something different and identify a fire code, I think in most instances we do reference fire codes in our state, but not necessarily to a driveway. So
Yeah.
if what it says is that you can't supersede the board in terms of some sort of judgment, if there's nothing in our zoning that is contrary to what you want to do. I'm not sure that you're superseding us by using NFPA 1.
The way the fire marshal worded it to me is, like, I can't use NFPA 1.
Even if it doesn't cross anything that's in the zone?
This House bill is putting it back on local land use boards.
All right, so ideally
I mean,
then,
if somebody smarter than me wants to dig deeper into exactly what the House bill says, have at it. I'm not.
Right, it was more just,
I barely know what HB meant.
I mean, I just don't see NFP 1 superseding us if it's addressing something that we don't address at all. But maybe, I don't know how that works.
yeah, all right, so, but I hear what you're saying. I think what I hear you saying is
If I
that
called the fire marshal
It-
and said I need
if
help.
you need to have, if you need to put some, some ammunition in your gun, we need to possibly reference the fire codes that you are currently using and say that under normal circumstances for a driveway, the fire chief will use blah, 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 and not to supersede.
I guess we gotta look at the driveway permit and see exactly what's in there and what it says. I don't think it says much, other than,
I witnessed one not that long ago, okay, when Pat was still a road agent. And he had a couple concerns. One was sight distance. So make sure wherever that driveway is going in, that there's enough sight distance so that it's not a dangerous place. And I think, correct me maybe Sarah, it's 25 feet from somebody else's property? That the driveway can't be any closer than that, 25 feet?
It's not in the zoning.
or
That's
20
not the
feet?
zoning ordinance.
Okay.
No, I think
Okay.
the driveway can actually follow the
Okay.
property line.
All right,
Yeah.
okay,
That's true.
all right,
Yeah.
okay. I just wait.
Anyway, so-
and then I know width is in the driveway permit.
Right.
And grade is in the driveway permit,
And sight
but
distance.
beyond,
Sight distance though was something that's
Yeah,
important.
site distance is
Right.
but beyond that, on the
Okay.
fire side of things, beyond that, there's nothing. So what's
Okay.
not,
I thought there was.
if it's not through the planning, maybe there would just be a
The driveway.
town ordinance that says something to the effect of, trying to think how those get worded, the fire department has the authority to access NFPA 1 for fire access when needed, or whatever, something, maybe that's will have to be done.
Yeah, I think two things. One is that first the bill has to pass, and then I'm fairly certain someone's going to come out with some boilerplate language that we can adopt. I mean, we're not the only ones who are going to have to worry about this. So either the NHMA will have something, or
The unique thing for us here in Jackson is I do a lot of fire access stuff compared to most towns in the state
okay.
because of our topography.
Mhm.
Because of,
Yeah, but how many towns? Yeah,
I mean, like a lot of
you know,
towns.
400 towns. Somebody else has got to worry about this.
But I'm
So-
just saying it is.
If not, we're pretty good at creating stuff. I've got a very creative mind over there who likes to create new things that are unique.
We also have on order an all-wheel drive fire truck, right?
Well, it's not, that one's not all-wheel drive.
Oh,
One we have.
Anyway, I would hear you,
Get it.
and when it passes, we'll take a look and see if we need to do something that'll keep you fully capable of doing the job that's necessary.
What's the number of the bill?
296.
HB 296. And I don't think it's passed yet, but the fire marshal is pretty sure it's gonna go.
And usually they aren't effective until,
I sent him, he's got an email and copies of all that.
you haven't sent me.
Pretty sure he did.
You were at the state.
You said you were going
I put a
to.
driveway in a few years ago. The state told me where I could put it.
The state told me.
That's
We didn't have road agent do tell you
Whoever that guy is in South Carolina, God,
Yes.
I don't know what they said because I didn't.
I put a driveway in, and the road agent here never inspected. You never inspected my driveway. I had the state come up, and they told me exactly where my driveway could only be.
Oh, yeah, 16.
Bill Terry,
Yeah.
what,
You're on
26,
16B.
23.
Right.
That's the difference.
Oh,
You're on
okay.
state
We're
road.
descended.
Okay.
All right, okay,
Uh,
that's the difference.
I don't know, whatever I talked to, WJ Terry at AOL.com.
Yeah, the last driveway that can be done.
That's good.
Because it's slow.
Oh, good.
That's right.
April
The
25th, that's
MHNA should have the
2:06 p.m.
information you need too. So the MHNA should have the information you need as well.
Didn't get here. Did you send it?
Maybe you're spam.
Alright,
I checked my junk too.
well, anyway. If anybody needs a copy of these, I can send it to you, but if you Google House Bill 296.
Got it.
You got it?
No, I didn't get it.
Oh.
but-
House Bill 296. So, alright. So I guess we'll see what happens. I think it gets a little bit throughout the year, I guess. And then, do you think this will be a selectman issue because it's, you guys don't have much on 1 and 2 family, or will it be something you guys
If the
do?
bill says we have to have it, we'll take care of it. And then they enforce everything anyway, so.
Okay.
We never enforce anything, we're not an enforcement.
Just
Or we try.
Sure.
Pardon?
We try to enforce it.
Well,
I'll bring about something else.
it's their responsibility, let me put it
That's-
that way.
Put it that way. Exactly.
All right, well, that's that. The only other item I had was, and it's regarding, I heard Kevin let me know about the 4-unit, whatever you want to call it, that Mallett's considering. And it triggered water supply. The last 4 units subdivision done in town, somehow it got missed for any water supply stuff. Which was a 4-unit subdivision on Retreat Way. So it's a matter of what kind of consideration we give to water supply. So Mallett's is easy, there's a water line, big water line running right through the front yard of where they want to put the building, so it's just a matter of making sure, or me recommending to you to make sure that they add a hydrant if they do a building.
And we did
Yeah,
discuss
I thought I did discuss that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Kevin wrote
And
that.
there's no capacity issue, right?
No, it's as good as the rest of the village.
Yeah, that's what Kevin said, there's a big pipe.
I mean, because I know we haven't seen a lot of big subdivisions in a long time, but the one on Retreat Way a handful of years ago, somehow that got totally missed, and that would have been really nice to have a cistern up there, but.
Okay. Very good,
Thanks.
we'll do our best.
Good, I go home then. Unless you got any questions on anything else, but.
Thank you. Appreciate you keeping us informed.
Yeah. All right.
Have a good night.
See ya.
Thank you. Right.
Actually, they are always our favorite topic. I'm switching it always now, putting it first so we can get rid of it.
Yes, short-term rental
That's
application.
right. Okay, so, this one is it's a new one, Daniel and Deborah Kimball. English. 13 Tucker Lane in Jackson. It's a tax card for 3-bedroom. Septic is for 3-bedroom, advertising 3-bedroom, sleeps 8, which is within our guidelines. Paperwork is complete. Everything seems to be in order. We see a copy of the ad here.
This is a new one.
It's a new, so it'll be up to 30 months.
It's a 30-day deal, or 30
months.
Rentals.
rentals. Yes. I'll get that right.
I don't know where Tucker Lane is, but
Do we know when people sign up for the 30-day deal?
30 rental.
30 rentals, right?
Yes.
So if anybody should get that right, Jesus.
So that's why I said we try to enforce it.
Right.
Okay.
Well, my question is, do they voice any purpose to it? You know, is this a second home and they just want to use it, you know, rent it when they're not there?
It could be all of that, but let me just say this.
I'm just curious if they
Since
actually.
March 20th, 2020, okay, we have, I think it's a handful, 11 or so
Yeah, 13,
STRs
something like
they're not grandfathered, they fall under the 30 limit, right? We haven't heard from any of them, not once, and it's supposed to be kind of an annual thing. So finally, this year, we decided we have to do something, we have to try and enforce this. So we've sent letters, emails to them reminding them that you have to tally up what you've done. We don't want to know how much money, we just want to know how many rentals you've had, that you haven't gone over 30, okay? And on the following year, the end of January, that's when we want to hear from them to tell us what they have. We're not getting a lot of responses right now. There've been a few, I can't exactly say what they said, other than they were questioning some things about whether they should be under the 30 or not, okay? You're gonna run into that.
It's pretty.
Because I rented to my relatives, 10 years ago, so does that count, So somehow you gotta show VRBO or something, some sort of receipt maybe to show that you were renting before 2020 to fall
And
under
that's
being
part of the
grandfathered.
application process, that they verify that as they apply.
Right, so we'll see what happens. We're just really now trying, because I never asked the question, I said, so who's contacted us? Nobody. We haven't heard from anybody. It's not easy to get 30 rentals in a year, but there are probably some out there.
How do you mean it's not, I'm sure you could get 30 rentals without any problem.
Oh, you
But
think
you're
it's
not
that easy? I
gonna,
don't-
I'm not gonna get 32-week rentals easily.
Right.
If you want to rent it the whole year.
And I don't know if I need to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways. Just sort of disclaimer, I have an STR, or I'm owner occupied. Okay, so I fall under that, but, so I don't want to, bias in any way about STRs. I'm trying to be as objective as I can about it, okay? But this is the one problem, because otherwise our zoning ordinance and everything the planning board has done regarding STRs, I think, is spot on. I think it's a good model for everybody. But this 30 thing is something that is not easy to enforce.
Right. And
But we're trying.
Yeah, and
We're trying now.
the idea behind it was, we recognized that it was that was probably the most difficult part of the
Okay.
whole thing to
Maybe.
enforce.
Yes.
The idea behind it was that, and I think we understood that people would get away with, doing something contrary to it, but the idea was that if you're purchasing property strictly for short-term rental, so therefore not for your own use at all,
Yeah.
you'd be taking a risk by purchasing a property that has that kind of restriction on it, because you don't know going into it how much the town is going to enforce it or not. And you don't know what kind of rentals, whether they're gonna be 1-day rentals or 2-week rentals. And so our idea was it's going to deter that sort of investment, where someone's not using the property whatsoever for their own use, only using it for short-term rental. And that type of person would just go buy and borrow it instead, because then they don't run the risk of, being policed.
And the 30 was intentionally set so it wasn't too prohibitive.
Right, we want second homeowners to have the ability to offset.
But if you talk to people who handle rentals for people, 30 days is a really big number. Very few people achieve 30 days.
30 rentals.
30
30
rentals
rentals
in a year, yeah,
But it depends.
exactly.
And
But it's not easy to do.
I've heard short-term rentals are way beyond hotel, like 70 to 90% rental.
In town, in Jackson? Here? Or is that just sort of in general?
It's a very high occupancy rate. And so I think 30 rentals you could do without even thinking. You get 30 3-day rentals, so you wouldn't come close to making it an investment property,
Right.
But again, most of the agents that I see, because we furnish them, right?
Mhm.
They say 30 days is not a problem at all.
Well, that's what I'm
30
saying.
the 30 rentals.
30 times.
Yeah,
30 times.
Yeah.
Right.
And intentionally so.
It was more that if you're only doing 30 3-day rentals,
Right.
you're not getting enough to buy a property strictly for short-term rental as an investment. And if you're thinking you can do more than 30-day rentals because the town's not going to police it, then you're taking a risk on that investment that, again, would probably deter you from making that investment.
That was the idea.
We're trying.
Enforcement of that's difficult.
And we understood that going in. It was more intended to be an upfront determinant as opposed to something that we would work with.
So
after the fact.
we spoke to our attorney about it a little bit, so if there's a violation, someone has a 35, like the other SDRs is pretty easy to deal with. Warning, 275, 3 months, you can't do it, right? So he said, well, we probably should do the same thing with the 30 limit, right? So the first year, someone says they did 31, okay? So we slap them on the hand. You got another whole year. They do it again, and they're fined $275, right?
And
That-
200
that's-
is it 275 per extra rental or just for any?
I don't think,
extra rentals?
our attorney didn't get that specific, because I don't,
Per
But-
violation.
you know, he didn't say that. He didn't say that, okay? I would hope it, but he didn't say that.
Because even
okay?
275 is probably less than what you'd rent it for.
All right, and then the third year, you even did it again. And so you lost 3 months, but you know, the first year you did 39, bam, warning, so what? Second year you did 43, another, 275, purpose, no one's gonna worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the enforcement part of it also has what's the penalty of it when we find it? I don't know. We really, other than what our attorney suggested to us, and that doesn't seem so awful, does it, to somebody?
Right, But since
Who
we're,
that's probably just gonna slap in the hand the first year, 275 the second year?
but
and
since,
rent it out.
since they're being permitted, can't we pull the permit? I mean, it's a conditional use permit.
Yeah,
so how
well,
that
there,
works.
we're gonna find out, Scott. We don't, we just, as I said, sent these letters out. We're not gonna be retroactive about this, all right? We decided not to do that. So let's just see what happens the end of January, and how many are gonna come to us and say, this is how many we had, and this is the lineup of VRBO and Airbnb and whatever else, to make sure that it was under 30.
Yeah, I think the other thing around the whole short-term rental process is that when we were putting these together, there was a Senate bill that was out there waiting to be passed that still has never passed, which was, I think, a little bit more liberal than what we actually came up with. And it wasn't entirely clear what we could or could not do. I sent out a copy of the recent ruling from the Supreme Court, New Hampshire Supreme Court, on the Conway case against Scott Goodrick, and I got a couple of comments back. I think that were it's like, it suggests that we likely have some homework to do on what we have currently, just to take a look and see if we are far afield from anything that's in that language, whether or not we need to make any adjustments currently. And I think as we're doing that, when we put this together, we put it with the idea that we didn't know all the answers, and we were going to have to make adjustments as we understood more about how things work and what was going to be allowed, not allowed, and what we were allowed to do, really. And Scott and I spent time with council going through all the possibilities of what you can and can't do for our community relative to inspections, licensing, permits, all the different ways that you go at this. And yeah, we came up with a plan. Was it the best plan? I still don't know. It's decent enough. It allows us to at least worry about the basic regulations of knowing who is renting, making sure that they don't rent to 52 people when it's a two-bedroom.
Right.
And that kind of thing.
I mean, I think we've really got on top of it. I mean, I'm sure there's some that feel that we still allow too many, and I'm sure there's some that feel that we ought to allow more.
Yeah.
And as long as those are about equal camps, then that probably means we're doing perfectly well. We have a much better idea of what's going on,
Yeah.
a little bit better enforcement capacity. I have a feeling, my gut feeling is that we've tamped down on it, that it's occurring in the way that we want it to occur 90% of the time. and we've not had a single even threat of litigation. And to me, that's a huge win, given what we're seeing everywhere else. I mean,
I think it's really,
honestly, I think we have a model ordinance that other towns ought to be looking at.
absolutely, and I think it's strong in property rights too, and that's the.
No, I think
that's
we
a
really struck,
important component.
and we recognize that we need people doing short-term rentals in Jackson, because we're a tourist town. I mean, that's
Right.
how
What-
people.
wasn't
And remember, there's a rooms
Isn't
and meals
that
tax in the
means
state
on,
of New Hampshire.
like Conway called a family residence versus a dwelling unit?
Yeah, and we kind of got away from
Yeah,
all
we don't
those
have, that's not,
Yeah,
We moved beyond the definitions, we got ahead of everything, they're trying to sort of retroactively get things under control with.
yeah, I mean, if you want to curtail short-term rentals, you have to rely on very specific wording. I mean, that was clear from the, and that they would allow for communities to have specific restrictions. If you can tailor it properly and run up the flagpole, they'll go, yeah, we agree, or maybe not, depending on property rights versus the community's right to have a planning board and zoning. And those are the two conflicting edges of the spectrum. I think what we have is pretty.
and you really don't know until it gets tested in court.
Right, and what we've tried to do is avoid the situation where we have to put something in place that begs someone to sue us.
One issue I see that's sort of a red flag to me is a First Amendment right, where someone can advertise that they have a swimming pool, waterfall, and queen-size waterbeds all throughout, and they don't.
Yeah.
That's not anything for the planning board to get, or anybody to be checking whether they're advertising.
And we don't care about that. No, we don't care about that.
Exactly. But I mean, we have people checking their advertising.
Only for number of
Right, that's it,
beds.
That's it.
right, and matching the
And
setbacks.
that's a code issue, that's, it's not.
That really gets down to is, can your
Properly support that.
Yeah, you've got a septic system, and, you know, if you have 12 people in the house on a regular basis, and it's only a two-bedroom home, and it should only have a load of 4 to 6 people, that's a problem. And that suggests that we are using reasonable constrictions, that they fit with expectations of what we have in our regular business. We don't allow somebody to put a 4-bedroom home on a property that only can support 2 bedrooms.
And what I've learned about this has nothing to do with us really, is that a VRBO or Airbnb or any of those, right? If somebody goes in one of those places and they had all of that you talk about, the beautiful beds and water beds and everything, and they don't, those people will tell VRBO. VRBO will get back to that person, and they can shut them off. So there is a mechanism from the inside when you're in that business, if you're using it,
It's
to
sometimes,
deal with it.
it's sometimes not as easy as that, but don't relate to you.
Oh, yeah.
Issues, right. It's not quite.
But, you know, right now, violations have been, windows, access, egress, all of that. You guys covered all of that.
But,
It's just the 30 deal.
yeah, but you
Like all
have,
the
I mean,
jury
just looking
30,
at
we'll see that.
your minutes, you guys have not had a lot of noise.
We haven't. That's
I mean,
right.
really,
Yeah.
the number of complaints have been fairly limited. And even some of the complaints that you have had nothing to do with short-term rentals. It's been,
It had to do with the noise ordinance.
which is a whole different.
Can rental records be requested by the town from Airbnb or VRBO?
Well, I don't know that. What
I mean,
we're doing is we're
I
asking
mean,
people who are running these things.
there's a room and boards tax involved, so
Yeah,
there's
rooms and
public
meals.
information to it. to
But how far
degree.
do we want to go on this? I don't know.
Well, I just thought that might be the easiest way to determine whether someone's going over the limit or not.
That may be
Is this-
heavy,
is this
that may be a
fast?
little heavy-handed to begin with,
Mhm.
all right? But that may be the next step
That
that
may
we're
be
finding
the
we're
next
not getting anywhere.
Right.
But right now, we're looking for this voluntary, although they haven't up to now,
Yeah.
to volunteer that information by the end of January 2024.
Short-term rental, we have a short-term rental application.
Already talked about that, but yes. On Tucker Lane, Kimball's, matches everything.
I move that we accept.
I have a motion to accept, do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That was easy. Yeah. And I did note that this one was properly stamped.
That's right, I did. I noticed that. Can't believe she argued with me.
The issue was last time we had one where they voted not to accept, and the reason we voted not to accept was that there were two sheets in the application, one of which was notarized, the other one that was not. And I'm sitting here and David opens the sheet up to the one that's not notarized and says, it's not notarized, it's incomplete.
Whatever for this thing here. Don't have two in here.
So yes, we don't have two in there. Please ask Julie to throw away one
Yeah.
that's incomplete. Okay, capital improvement program. We last meeting had assignments. I'll report on my assignment. I talked to the library folks. And, the interesting part around that is because the chair of the board of the library happens to be my spouse. So it was a really difficult access to get a hold of her and say, hey, what should, and I think what's interesting is that her first response is, I have no idea. Because as a board, they've not sat down and talked about what their capital improvement needs are. And they did meet, and they, because of the prompt, and did talk about that. And it's like, okay, we've got two pieces of this. One is we can identify some short-term needs, but we don't have a strategic plan in place. And because they have a new librarian coming on board, they're not going to do a new strategic plan until the new director's in place. That won't happen until July. So their activity is going to be probably August, September. So she did provide me with a list, and if anybody saw the minutes from their meeting, you saw pretty much what she's told me. They have some needs which they would like to address. And some of them have more expense than others. For example, adding meeting space, adding storage capability. There's a push for having additional space for the children's part of the library. It's very cramped the way it's set. And the other would be that they have the shelving in the library is fixed, and because it's fixed, it doesn't allow them a lot of opportunity to adjust how they display books, and it limits the number of volumes that they can have and how they work it. And so those are the things they brought up. And costs, we had no idea of costs. Not even a soft cost idea or how you figure that out. I'm expecting that some of the other situations that you guys have gotten into are going to have some similarities to that, or not. Maybe, for example, David, you're on the fire
Yes.
folks, and Kathy, you've got the school. Both of those organizations have gone in depth in terms of what they want to do. At least I think they have. So, but anyway, I did my report. So, anybody else want to report?
Okay. My situation is very similar to yours because my son is the chairman of the school board, and they have no idea what their projected terms are going to be. First of all, they're getting a new principal this year, And they were very happy to be able to get some money from the town to change the playground. That's been that way for 40-some years. So they've gotten half of it this year, and that's one of the projects they're working on. That's the big immediate things. And the biggest problem is that they need teachers, need new staff. And as far as, they can't think any further than that. And they also are dealing with the amount of kids that are coming in and going out, how many kids are coming in. They have a lot of kids in there right now. And what's projected as far as new kids coming in. Now, because I listen to things here and see little kids coming in, I know at least 2 families are coming with little kids. It might be a couple years from now, but they have to all project this when they're discussing it. And so he said, Jerry said that at this time, they don't have time to think about it. And because they have a lot of projects going on too, as far as where they're gonna send the kids to high school and cost of things and cost of, a bus every couple of years and things like that.
Not to interrupt, but the contract with Kennett is up in a year.
Yeah.
And so they have to do their due diligence as to where they're going to send the kids. And it may well be Kennett, but that's a long, in other words, they can't really plan for any expansion, the needed expansion of the building, because they have these other things.
Yes.
And they've had difficulty keeping a group of people who, on that committee,
They were,
to take a look
they
at
were very, very happy to get the principal that they did, and it was almost like a bolt from the blue, as Kathleen pointed out.
Mhm. So I don't have any other answers other than at this time, it's not feasible for them to do it.
Yeah, okay, so for the capital improvement program though, how do we work that? How do you think that we ought to be working that? Should we be pushing back at them to do something, or should we be taking what they have proposed more recently in the near-term past?
Well, one of the problems also is that, in the past, they have 4 tiny school rooms, okay? They would like to expand it. They need more storage. And
2 of the rooms are substandard as the state regulation, but they are not even close to, in other words, it would be inappropriate for us as a board to tell them what to do.
Right.
Like you found with the library, the direction should come from the library board to the planning board. Here's what we project. And it's the same thing with the school board.
Yeah.
They're not even ready to begin talking about the structure. They're involved in, as Kathleen said, the $75,000 for the playground this year, $75,000 next year. That'll complete that. And other than staff issues, they don't even want to talk about any other capital improvements.
But the good news is that Jerry told me, your son told me that we're not in any danger of losing accreditation.
Right.
We're fine that way, the way we are right now. But I echo the sentiment that you guys had said, that, there's a lot on their plate, especially now what are we gonna do with our students, the high school students, and whether they go to Canada or wherever, and all the
Right.
contracts, so there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff going on.
Now, what about the article that they were asking for? They've done a fair amount of work to come up with what they were proposing at town meeting, which didn't pass. Was capital that they wanted? And is that plan just been shelved?
I
You talking school meeting? At the school meeting?
Yeah, not this past year, but the year before, when it didn't pass, I think it was a $250,000.
Preschool?
I wasn't.
No, it wasn't preschool. It was about getting initial funding for review for building adjustments, if you will, partly to take care of the substandard issues, but also for whether or not they would.
But they decided not to put in a request for that engineering,
Right.
because they're not even close to.
Right, this year they said, no, they're not, but if we're looking at 6 to 10 years, is it,
If they don't know what they're gonna do, how could we?
We can't, but we should, I think that our job, unlike their job is possibly year to year. Our job is to try to look beyond the year to year and say, these are the considerations we might have, and if there's a possibility of something.
The selectmen can do their budgeting.
Right.
That's the purpose of
Right.
6745. The,
Well,
but
not
if
just,
the board isn't even closed, how could we tell the board?
not saying tell anybody anything. What I'm suggesting is that as we go through this, and yes, it's to inform the select board, but if the select board knows that, for example, that, yeah, there's something maybe on the horizon, but it's not immediate, but it could be out 3 to 5 years, that may suggest timing-wise, if we have to do something with the fire department, that we don't time the fire department for 3 to 5 years out so that the two will be in conflict at the
So
same time.
let's go back to the school for a second. Part of the capital improvement plan is to put numbers on it.
Part of that.
How would you begin to put numbers on that?
What we're doing is making predictions.
Right.
We're not saying, school, what do you need today, tomorrow? We're saying, okay, what are the possibilities? We're looking ahead. They can't think about it right now. I accept that. I remember, my wife was there,
Exactly.
fighting it out for many of the issues. But we can step back and say, okay, I think this is going to come up within the next 10 years. And we could probably do a little homework and put a price on it. Everybody knows prices go up every year. I've got solar prices that are not gonna hold up for 10 years. But anyway, we're just trying to think ahead. I don't think we're trying to put anything on the school. We're not saying, here's where you should be headed, school. We're just saying, I think this is gonna come up.
And how would you know what the design of it would look like?
That's not important. None of
No,
that's
no,
important.
no,
All that's
Well, how are you
detailed.
gonna come up with a number?
And I disagree to some degree. I think that if we get too speculative with the capital improvements plan, it ceases to have any merit. I think the purpose of it is to say, we want to do this for the school in the next 5 years. It's going to take approximately this much money. So this coming year, we're going to start saving towards that goal and put $100,000 in the town budget towards that fund for whatever the purpose
You mean
is.
as opposed to doing a bond when they're ready to do it?
No, I'm just saying that, to me, that's the capital improvements plan, is to lay out, what we want in the future and then a plan to get there in terms of how are we gonna put together the resources, the capital. to
But the
make
plan
that
could
happen.
be that what they tabled 2 years ago, or what didn't pass 2 years ago, and they didn't bring it back, was maybe phase one is to, as far as cost, is what's it gonna cost? And say it's not on the plate today, but time's gonna pass very quickly, and we're gonna be in 2025 very, very fast. And now we're 2 years behind. And so, do you plan for 2025 is where, okay, we're gonna estimate that we're gonna have to start planning.
I mean, and I agree that the school board should be doing that planning.
Right.
It's just that, I think if we put too much into the capital improvements plan that doesn't have,
For
clear
example,
definition,
The state
it
of
doesn't
New
have
York,
any
the
merit.
state of New York requires public schools to offer a preschool, okay, a pre-K. That could happen I'm laughing because I doubt it would happen in Hampton.
It's not gonna
We just got
happen.
We just got kindergarten. But if the state said that the public schools have to offer a pre-K, then we'd have to,
right, and then we would
Scramble.
lay out a
Then you have
plan
something
of
to do.
costs and we
Right.
say, okay, how are we gonna get there?
I guess from,
I mean, how often do we actually look at the capital improvements plan to determine what we're going to do? Say we have a current capital improvements plan in place. Do we actually look at it and say, okay, what are we gonna do next year that we haven't done anything on yet?
well,
You should.
that's kind of what, when we
That's what you guys-
we interviewed the school board, and what they said is, you can put anything you want into it.
that's the master plan.
Yeah.
Master plan is the
Well,
dream.
no, and he related to that, which are you doing? He said, we're doing a capital improvement. He said, if you want to go, he said, we have no idea what we want. How could you?
Right.
But if you want to put some numbers in there, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, well, go ahead. Okay.
It's my feeling that, and maybe this is just a little, not very forward-looking, whatever, but at least when we did it before, is that we talked to each one of the departments and saying, what is it your needs, and then you have your wants, and trying to look at, and if you have a situation where you don't have the resources that you need to do your job, then how are we going to get those resources and then plan out for them as to what is the highest priority and lesser priority, and you set up your plan that way. And if the particular agency says, well, we're doing pretty well, we've got what we need right now to do our job, but if things change and we want to expand or offer this extra services, then this is what we would need, and that there might be some capital expense on that. But to set out your capital improvements plan as to how much you're going to spend next year, the year after, and so on, then go for the highest priority needs first, and not creating something for a group that doesn't say it needs anything.
That points to the fact that there's a scarcity of funds. That you have to say, what's number one, what's number two.
Right.
And we all have to do
With
that.
response, I did interview the road agent several times on what his needs were. The only need that they have in the immediate future, other than their normal budgeting for rolling stock and sand and road improvement, which we put another, what was it, 35,000
Yeah.
in that this
A
year.
little extra. Needed it.
So the one thing that they need to do is put a roof on the sand pit, because the labor costs involved with moving the sand once it's frozen, putting it through grates, putting it under the other building, putting it through grates again, that they feel that it would be, what it was, Frank, just under 200,000? Yeah. And Coleman was the only one who was interested in bidding on it. And the foundation that's at the sand pit now was designed to have a carrier roof, so that's in place. And it's just a matter of, I think Gary told me about 170,000 would do it. Other than that, their rolling stock plan improvement replacement is in our capital plans already.
In the current one, yeah. All right, how my brain's working around this is how I wrap my head around this. I think there's going to be things like a roof over the sand pit that has a specific dollar amount and a need that you can specify, and you can figure it out, budget, plan it, and that belongs in the capital improvement plan. I also think that you have to be taking a look at the big ticket items, like the fire station and like the school, that may not have it, or the library. And if you take a look at all the things they're potentially asking for, it could be a fairly good sized sum of money. If there are those things out there, you have to also have a factoring of them, even if you don't have a dollar amount to put in there, to say, here, in the next 6 to 10 years, we don't have a dollar amount, but we have a feeling that there is going, we're going to have to do this, at least this. We're going to either have to do this or this. For example, if the school has 2 classrooms that don't meet requirements, I would think that.
No, two are substandard.
Well,
They have 4.
okay, but whatever. You'd say that's a reasonable thing that in the next 6 to 10 years should be corrected. And
But they can't put a dollar sign on it.
I'm not suggesting that we can put a dollar sign on it. You have to just say, here is a cost factor that's going to be there and it's going to be within this time frame. As opposed to, you know, you take a look at the building and you go, oh my God, we're gonna have to replace that in 2 years. It's a fire trap.
But that's what we're gonna do anyhow, whether or not it's in the capital improvements plan. I mean, putting and I don't see it's a problem putting in the plan, but I just don't see it gets us anywhere, because it's just words that,
Yeah, but
People are unlikely to even read
but words are
later on.
important, and
Right.
understanding where your words are, and understanding where.
I just don't see that they get us anywhere in this situation. I just see that when the school needs, when it has to get an expansion or improvement, it's gonna come to the town and say, we need this, and the town can
All right.
vote on it and say yes or no.
The reason we didn't pass the school thing is people said they were surprised by it, okay? Big surprise that we were, you know, they needed to have more money to do some things that were necessary to get the building in proper shape. And everyone was so surprised that they voted it down. That was exactly what I heard.
You
From-
come back with the preschool.
Yeah, even the preschool, but also this $250,000 budget, which was not
Right.
this past year, but the year before.
But, so if the school had come to the town 5 years before and said, we're gonna need 250,000, so we wanna start
We're-
with 50,000 a year, that would have been a different situation.
Right,
But there
or-
you have a specific plan.
Or they say, yeah,
in
look,
place.
in the next 5 to 10 years, we're gonna have to bring this building up to, and that's something we're going to do. We can't address it now, but we know that we're going to address it in the next 5 years.
And I just don't think that
That's-
carries any weight. I think that's 5 years ago, and no one remembers 5 years ago.
But that's if you only look at it 5 years ago. You should look at this thing every year.
This, yeah, it should be looked at.
Right, but to me, the way you look at it is by
But-
actually putting money.
but-
And every year, you look at what you
But
don't
if
have
you want
money
to
to,
fill
you
in the
put money
blanks,
to.
just for filling in the blanks, it doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt. I'm just saying that the more we pad the capital improvements plan.
But to
with
Sarah's
non-money-
comment, is that the town, the selectmen need to prioritize stuff. And
And that's kind of what I'm saying, is you make the capital
to get
improvement
to
plan
that,
above
to get to
the.
that point, what I'm hearing with regard to that is the fire station. That's the number one deal.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
we know that in terms of soft costs, they're talking about what, 7.6 or 1.5. Now,
Well, there's something in between now.
what?
There's something in between now.
All right. Do you have a soft number
All
on
right,
that?
but, okay, so
Well, let's finish the,
we have two discussions going on here. We have
Yeah,
reports of people reporting back, and we have a conceptual discussion about should be included, and I think both are valuable discussions.
Let's do
I-
that and then-
I was trying to get to what Scott was saying.
Right, and so my point is that if you really want the town to support that priority need, the fire department, the more you pad into the capital improvements plan, possible expenditures down the road, but without numbers to them, without a clear plan, it's just gonna scare people away from that big number that you need right now. And so I think we ought to
And
narrow the capital improvements plan
And-
to the things that we actually can start
And
planning.
I would say that from, I'm a financial guy. That's I've done that my entire life, financial planning.
Right, but if you don't have any
And-
numbers, how do you financial plan
Because you have objectives.
without numbers?
No, you have objectives.
Yeah.
You have objectives. Your objectives don't have numbers. I bet you have 62 objectives in your head right now that you could define for me that have no numbers attached to them for cost. And I'll bet you there are another 15 that have numbers attached to them. And you will say, well, gee, yeah, I wanted to do that, but I don't know what the cost is going to be. I'd like to do that, but I don't know what the cost is going to be. But you have an objective. You also have goals. Goals are a whole different animal than objectives, of course. But you have both. And when you have an objective is something that is very, very possible. Goals are kind of, I'd like world peace. An objective, I want to get this thing done in the next 3 years. That's an objective. I don't know what the cost is going to be. I want to get I want to get my driveway repaved. I have no idea what it costs, but within the next 3 to 5 years, I want to get that done.
I'm
As
not
a
gonna say
course.
if you don't know the
Before
cost,
you
you won't
do
get
it-
it done in the next 3 to 5 years.
Maybe, but if I don't know I want to get it done in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm not going to think about it. It's that you start with an objective, then you attach a cost to it.
And I just don't think people have that kind of persistent memory. of
We
it.
have to have that kind of persistence, and we have
But
to
you
have
don't
that
do
kind
the
of.
driveway until you know what it's gonna cost.
Right.
Pardon?
You don't do, I'm with you on the objectives, but when there's some objectives that we need to do soon. And
Absolutely.
your driveway won't get done until you know what it's gonna cost.
That's very possible. Or I may still check to see what it costs, which I've already done, by the way,
But
and put it off because I think that I can't pay for it until another 3 to 5
that's
years.
that's a real valid point. And that gets to what Sarah was saying. You know,
So if the way really the way to do it is you start paying for it now. And that's to me what the capital improvements. plan
And
is.
setting
Is
aside
is
for
this-
funds or planning and timing for funds.
But Scott, you can't put aside 1.5 million or 7.5 million. That's a bond.
And-
It's a
and-
different, but I just think that however you're gonna put that money aside, you need to have those numbers in the capital improvements plan so that
Yes.
you can start putting it aside
Yes.
or come up with a plan to put it aside. I think saying the school is gonna need to expand at some point in the future, I just don't see that gets anybody anywhere.
And I disagree with you, okay? I think you need to have the nuts and bolts stuff that you're describing, absolutely, but I also think you need to have the other part.
No, I don't see that it harm it, other than you can scare people
Can we
away from
go
the
on
stuff.
to what we do have now?
Sure.
We can hash what we put down on paper at the end of this process all the way along. We're gonna be talking about, but could we go to the positive now and let's have Dave tell us what he's come
Wait a minute,
to?
who has reported so far? Now, I've reported.
Library.
Reported,
We got the library, the
Highway.
school, and the highway.
highway, and the highway, so we've got 3 reports in.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's go through the rest of the boards.
I didn't do the police yet. I have, next week is when I'm meeting with the chief, but I did meet with Jay. And Jay does have numbers, okay? Down to the penny. But anyway, so the fire station, which we've all talked about to death. Now there are 3 options that Jay and I talked about. One is the one we all know, and that's a brand new fire station at its current location that costs anywhere between now about $5 to $6 million in today's money. God knows what it's going to cost if we wait for another 2 or 3 years. But in today's money, it's about $5 or $6 million. The advantage of our new space gives us about 50 to 60 years on the building. Got to remember that. Okay, remember that number. Okay. The other option, which nobody does know, but except I think you may or Bob knows, but is he is considering an alternative site for the fire station. Okay? There's an advantage to that, because in that $5 to $6 million or $7 million is a lot of prep work on moving the septic, the electric, the plumbing that's all in front of that parking lot has to be relocated for that fire station to be built. That's part of that cost. That has nothing to do with the actual building. The alternative site is in this parking lot over here.
The old tennis court.
Yes. He would convert, I didn't even know that's what it was called, but yes.
Yep.
Is to convert that space there. It would remove that spot. It would cover over a little bit over into where there's a tree area. You see the parking lot, there's trees on the left side. That would be gone. And it would be facing the town, it would be facing the road, but it would allow for a driveway to come in the back so they can bring trucks in the back. The the fire station would be a butt-to-butt double trucks, just like the new one is. But it's exactly the same building that they were going to build here, put over here.
But the new one wasn't gonna have an in and out.
No, because it doesn't have the room to do that.
And by the way, the new one in Conway doesn't have an in and out.
I know, because it's the train tracks going. Bad design. But anyway,
Train tracks right behind.
yeah. A couple of the
And
advantages of
it's
this new
playground there in
location.
front of it.
He has to talk to Burr because of the little stream there. He wants to make sure that that's okay. One of the advantages of this is two things. One, they don't have to concern with where they're going to relocate the fire equipment
Right. The
while
road,
they're tearing
the
this one
road
down.
stop.
You know. Second, you have a building that, in theory, could be at a later date at cost to be renovated into maybe possibly a police station. You know, but you have a structure that could actually be used for something. The building agent, I know we don't want to talk about it now, but you could house an ambulance there.
Oh,
Okay. Jay and I just threw out ideas, but it's a building that could be used for alternative.
Maybe some affordable housing,
You could tear it down and build affordable housing.
or just carve it up.
Right, okay? So, and then the third option, which also has been discussed, again, that also, because it's new, gives us a 50 to 60 year lifespan. Okay, because I didn't realize how old that building was.
75.
It's
The
a,
third-
it's a couple of years older than I am.
The third option, which has been talked about, is just taking the current space, and I told you, I call it an upgrade, okay? Because there are things that he wants to add to it. The back end would be squared off, the bays would be somewhat enlarged. The chief's office would be moved down to the first level because it has to be handicap accessible. Right now it's against code, because the chief's office is up on the second floor. So I didn't realize that was a code issue, but it has to be down. They can move some locker rooms. It doesn't address all their issues, like they need a decontamination area. We have one that's like basically a closet. Doesn't fit that need, but it's okay. That's about $1.5 to $2 million to renovate. That gives us only about 10 to 15 years on top of that building. Because all you would do is be painting the outside. It doesn't address the snow that falls in front of the doors all the time. And it just,
and say it about 1.5?
1.5 to $2 million.
1.5 20-year bond would add about $400 a month, a year, to a $400,000 home. 1.5. And it takes 2/3 to pass a bond. A new fire station is how much?
Probably, it could, if we do the alternate site, it's about 4.5 to 5.
And that makes more sense, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna do it, because now you don't have to worry about what you do with the rolling stock. That bond for 20 years would cost about $800 addition to a $400,000 for 20 years. Again, 2/3.
And the numbers just came out, the average cost of housing in New Hampshire is $450,000.
The current, I checked, the current bond rate is forecast at 5.5. They don't think it would be that high, but they're putting it that high so you're not misleading the voter.
And something has to be done. Jake, we talked about the bond, we talked about what we're gonna put in front. He really is gonna push you guys. Once we get this to you guys, he's really gonna push you guys to make a decision on what we wanna put on as far as thing. Because again, this is, we wait another year. So, I don't know who decides, and that's the part I don't understand. Who decides which of these options we pitch to these guys, or do we put all of them?
Put them all in.
When you put it on the warrant,
No, I mean to these guys.
right, when you put it on the warrant, it has to be the first item on the warrant. And you have to have a 1-hour window for voting on it, secret vote. You can run the meeting while that voting is going on. If you do an option A and an option B,
We don't.
but if you give the voter that choice.
Right.
Then you're talking about a 2-hour window for voting while the meeting is going on.
Jay and I talked about, maybe this is a little premature, but we talked about
I'm just talking about the realities of what we
that we
got.
put an option, the big option out first. If that gets voted down, the next year we have to go out with the small one.
Okay, you do it the year after.
And then you say, guys, you already didn't want the big one. You need the little one. And you force them to vote to the next one. Don't go with the
So
short.
then the question becomes to Bill, how do we deal with that in the master plan? All right, in the capital improvement.
So, But that's not all he wants. He wants more.
Right, but if we're voting on it, this coming March, it's not really part of the capital improvement plan, it's, we're making it happen right now.
Well, I think in that instance, to answer your question, the way I would manage that, I think would be to say that we will either have a cost of A or B that needs to be managed within the next
2 years.
2 years. And it's like, one of these two scenarios is going to have to be done.
Yeah. So basically, we're gonna punt,
We will.
which is smart.
Yeah.
I think that's a smart.
I think that's the right answer, and then, because, again, the capital improvement program is to advise the select board about expenditures that may come forward in the next 6 to 10 years. So we can say, you're either gonna have this or you're gonna have that.
Right.
And you guys are gonna need to decide which thing you are going to bring to the voters. And you have to decide what's important, and you do your public hearings and all the whole 9 yards.
I saw a program the other day on TV, and it was a 16th century Tuscan castle. They got refurbished, put a lot of money into it, and they made it work. And they didn't say it was only good for 100 years. I think they figured it was good for another maybe 500 years or whatever. So I'm not so sure that you can't refurbish the fire station and give it a date to say that's only going to be good for 50 years. It's been there 75 years. Carpenters and engineers and all of these folks can do miracles. The water, the sprinkler system, the build out in the back, a new roof, new wiring, a better place for them to dress and do all this other stuff. I think refurbishing is something to really truly look at. That would be not as much money, but give us everything we need. But there is another problem with all this. Just beyond all of that, and we know that we have to do something there. Okay, whatever it's going to be, I don't know. Okay, but who's going to be manning this, or who's going to be the personnel that's going to be there? Do you know that one call I saw it on the chalkboard when they went on the call, the average age was 62.
Mhm.
And that's kind of like where the average age is somewhere in the upper 50s, low 60s for our fire department. Who's going to be manning that place?
Who's climbing the ladder?
No, I'm saying-
I think.
No, because that was an issue.
No,
I didn't
yeah.
know if that goes in the capital improvement, because that's one of his concerns, is staff.
It's a big concern.
Well,
for everybody.
so maybe we may no longer have a volunteer fire
We talked
department.
about-
So then what are you talking about?
Okay.
Operational costs.
Right.
And so every time we talk capital improvements, we've got to think about operational costs. The Bartlett-Jackson ambulance, they've got big plans also. We're going to get a new ambulance, but they also are talking about, we can't maybe just do this with volunteers anymore. We're going to have to start paying people. So that's also going to add.
That changes
There's
numbers
a
a lot.
lot of things. Okay.
So the staff go in cost, costs like that go into
Yeah,
something?
and not only is age an issue, it's where they live. A
Right.
good percentage of staff lives in Conway,
Okay,
Mass.
but time out, guys. Now you're talking about a little bit of project creep here. And you know this thing really well about project creep because you were in the construction business, right?
And you said in meeting creep.
And it's like, meeting creep too. Capital improvement is about expenses for capital,
Right.
not operating
But you can't
expenses.
separate out the operation because it's going to be part of it.
No,
We have to start hiring.
that's part of the process of how you make a decision, but I have to ask you,
All right, that's okay.
I have to ask you, if we have a refurbished fire station or a new fire station, do we still have the same issue around who's going to man the station? And the answer is, I think we do.
Yeah.
And so that really doesn't affect our capital improvement program. That affects how we decide as a community we want to manage dealing with fire safety.
I'm not just putting all of them together.
That's all
Okay.
part of the
All of them
argument
together.
for or against, when it's voted. That's when that comes up. That's when that discussion is.
Yep.
We put forward the money.
Yep.
We're showing,
Yep. Because there's other
And
things
then-
that aren't cheap.
and it's a valid discussion.
It is.
How are we gonna man the station? I totally agree. but that's not our business.
Right, that's what Bill was saying. It's
I know, I'm
operational
just
cost
trying
and
to-
capital cost.
Shout it out.
You know, I don't think you can separate them out because it's all gonna be on the bottom line of
No,
my tax bill.
no, our business and your business are two different businesses.
Okay, all
You're
right.
the operating guy, we are just simply
Okay.
the capital guys.
I'm just throwing that out just to say. just
Yeah, we
consider
can't
that.
solve your problems,
Yeah.
we can only solve so many problems all at once. And we aren't even gonna solve our problem, we're gonna do our best job to
All right,
put
we're gonna-
something together.
Short-term rentals, now the fire department. We can't solve all his problems,
Yeah.
but we can get
He's
on
doing
with
it
our
Yeah.
program.
Okay. Yep.
You wanted to.
So the other major project or cost that he expects over the next at least 5 years, if not sooner, is the radio towers. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the problems we have with the radio towers or the radios, is the tower up here is fine for Jackson. However, we need 2 additional towers. And the cost is not 100% ours. Ours would be a third of the total cost. So the total cost is about $300,000 to add 2 additional towers. One would be in Bartlett, closer to here, because the radios don't work. Because our staff don't live here, they don't get the signals and they don't get the radios. So we need to put a tower in Bartlett, and then the other side of Bartlett for Hart's location, because apparently we service Hart's location, and that's even harder for this tower to reach. And if you replace one, you gotta replace, I mean, if you're gonna add 2 new ones, you gotta replace this third one to keep up with the technology. So he said that we shouldn't pay more than a third of the cost of that.
Because the other 2,
Hmm?
oh, the other 2.
Yeah, we would replace ours.
So they're gonna keep the one in Tyrol, that's 100%.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But after the storm, we lost that tower and they replaced it. I understand that the signal is a whole hell of a lot better than it was, and they get into River Street and Bartlett, and
Right.
it
And
goes
that's
to
why he said
places. They
it's
felt
5
they felt really good about where they're at right now.
Yeah, he said
But-
that's a 5 to 6, because I was asking him what was today and what was
Yeah.
5 years from now, what's 10
Uh-huh.
years from now, what we look forward to.
Right.
So he says, right now, it's not an issue, but it will be. Next, we have a fire truck that's apparently on the books already to be replaced in 2036. A forestry truck will probably need to be replaced in the next five years. Another pickup truck in 2028. The other 2 costs are air packs. They need to replace, we need 3 or 4 of them replaced in the next 4 to 5 years because they expire, so those will be costs, that's about $100,000. And finally, in 2005, we got a federal grant to buy handheld radios for the fire department and the trucks. So that was in 2005, okay? So they are becoming
Obsolete.
and obsolete. So they need to be replaced, and there's no more federal grants, and that's about $200,000. Because we need 25 portable radios and 6 radios for the trucks.
So then the question is, can you get a 5G tower and then I have to do it?
So 31 radios is.
It's 25, $200,000.
I've got a really nice
Yeah.
radio and it costs maybe $200. So.
You know, the new fire engine we're getting is a automatic.
You don't have the super
$1 million.
duper.
No, but it's an
pretty
automatic.
Super duper. When I'm paragliding, I need a super duper radio.
I just want to say that the new fire truck is an automatic, the one that we've ordered, okay? And it's an automatic because no one knows how to drive a ship anymore. It's a fact. There's only like 3 guys that can drive a ship, or maybe a woman or a guy. I don't know what the mix is, but that's all. All right, that's why
They
we're getting.
said
we're
Kenny could drive,
going for
Kenny
another.
could drive this new one.
But that truck brings the issue of the
Oh, it
fire
was
station.
$800,000 we just spent on a new fire engine this year.
How much was it?
No money.
$800,000.
I
$800,000.
did.
That fire truck raises the issue for the new fire station, because that truck would not fit in this fire
Oh,
station.
we made a good point of that, and that can build out on the fire station if you had to. We can do that. All right, so it's not an impossible situation.
You can barely walk around that fire
I know.
truck. I know you're.
Oh,
Guys,
yeah,
guys. And we can be talking all night on that.
Can I say
No,
something
just
for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
About the school issue? Jerry said to me that,
Our son.
yes,
That's it.
because of, a new principal coming in and other things going on, what they're trying to get done right now, and not knowing over the summertime not knowing anything at all about this new principal as far as things go, as far as the school goes. He said to me if I really wanted to revisit it in the fall, he'd be more than happy to sit down with me on it.
Yep.
But right now we can't
Yep.
because of everything going on.
Yep.
So I haven't totally given up, okay?
Yep.
But I'm working on it.
Yeah, no, I
You understand because you're wasting these things.
I understand, yeah, very well.
Yeah.
All right, so we've had,
Falls not that far away.
I know, it's not. It's right around the corner.
I'd like to, if we could, because we could spend all night here trying to get all the reports, if we could maybe defer the rest of the reports till our next meeting?
I just would add one thing. This building was not discussed in our assignments, and I think it would be important to speak with the two offices.
Can I
and
say
maybe-
something about that too?
Yes.
I took it upon myself to talk to the girls and to Chris about what their needs were as far as I was thinking about. And then that goes to, it all depends on what we're doing with the fire department over there. If we're keeping out or whatever it is, because the police would like to expand out, and so would the girls like to expand out. The windows need to be replaced, they've been in here for 20 years, they're fogging up, the carpeting needs to be done, and those kind of things. They really have a decent kitchen there, you know, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't on a high priority with them right now. And I was thinking possibly if we don't use the town hall the fire station, maybe the police could use their cars in there, because they would like to have spaces, especially in the wintertime, to be able to pull in, when, you know, so they're not full of snow and things like that. So I have talked to them about it. And,
Yeah,
so
I was
some
hoping-
architectural designs and things like that. I mean, I haven't done duty on this, I see them all the time, and I know what's going on, because I'm in there every day. And, so, I'm working on it.
Good. I was hoping we could assign that to our select
What am I getting?
board
assigned?
representative to officially take responsibility for the town office
Okay.
review.
Seems
I've talked to them a
appropriate to
little
me.
bit.
And,
They talked-
and obviously you already have somebody who's done all the work, so that'll make your job really easy. But I'd like that to be your assignment, if that's all right.
It's like Dave's wife said to me, you know, congratulations, thank you, you're on the planning board, that means you have 11 more meetings this year.
Well, only 7 more this year, but you know.
And I'll remind you, I won't be here for the next one, because I'm gonna be in the coastal meeting, I told you that.
Yes, excellent. That's a good thing to do.
But the girls told me it was no hurry, okay?
Yeah, no.
But this is the 10-year
Exactly,
plan.
exactly.
It's
We
gonna
don't want
come up.
the, we don't want the, I mean, we do want to understand what the, oh my God, we got to get this done now thing is, but if you're looking at I mean, replacing carpet tiles or whatever, it's not something urgent, but maybe it needs to be managed over the next 3 to 5 years.
Or replace all the lighting with LED lighting.
And
I
they're
mean,
talking
the-
about the heating system too, and there's
Yeah.
all kinds of things going
Yeah,
on,
there's,
yeah.
That's a good idea.
there's
That's a
a,
good idea, though, you did.
there's a payback for
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Mhm.
it saves you money.
It's nice to even have a solar thing on there, you know, that
Right.
saves money.
All right. So, do I have do I hear a motion to adjourn for this evening?
A motion.
I would love to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion,
He's got
second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was so
Thanks, guys. I mean, really good discussion.